What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be taking a trip back to 2001 for a film that I'm very nostalgic for, and that film is called Motocrossed. Directed by Steve Boyum and starring people like Alana Austin, Trevor O'Brien, Riley Smith, Mary-Margaret Humes, and many more, Motocross is the story of a girl taking her brother's place in a motocross event without anybody knowing that she's a girl. Before we get too far into this, I want to say a big thanks to you guys for watching, clicking here on this video. I always appreciate anybody who takes their time to click on one of my videos here on the channel. I also want to invite you guys to hit that like button because it helps the channel out, as well as starting to get your fingers ready to comment down below. I'll go ahead and start this off by asking, have you seen Motocross? Is this a film that you're also nostalgic for? Did you grow up in the Disney Channel movie era that I grew up in? Is this a movie you remember seeing back in the day? Do you not like this movie? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below. And I also want to invite you guys to hit that subscribe button so you guys can stick around for all other movie reviews moving forward, whether it's a brand new big blockbuster or just covering older movies like this from the Disney Channel. And of course, I also want to say a big thanks to my guest here in this video, Dave of the channel Interpreting the Stars. We're going to be getting to his thoughts in just a little bit, but I want to say a big thanks to him for joining me here in this video. I'm always appreciative to any of my guests, my YouTube peers, friends, guests that just come on for a one-off, whatever the case may be, especially when they're willing to watch pretty much anything. And in the case of today, we're talking about a Disney Channel original film from 2001, a movie I'd seen dozens of times over the course of reruns on the Disney Channel back in the day, and it's always fun to get one of my YouTube friends to sit down and watch one of these movies. And you never really know if they're gonna like it, if they're not gonna like it, if they're maybe gonna have some sort of nostalgic attachment themselves, or if it's something they've never ever seen before. Again, we'll be getting to Dave's thoughts in just a moment, but let's get into the base premise of this movie and my initial thoughts on it. So Motocross is a film that you've seen before, with probably the most notable version of this story being told in a film called She's the Man with Amanda Bynes, where in this movie we follow a kid named Andrew who is a motocross star. Essentially, he's trying to make it in that world. Their family owns a motocross business, they have a brand, and the dad is really hard on the son in terms of him learning the craft and becoming a real solid player in this sport. And so the movie goes, we start to see some training and some preparation for a big tournament that's coming, and unfortunately Andrew, who also goes as Andy, ends up hurting himself. He gets injured and he cannot be a part of this competition. Now his sister Andrea, who also goes by the name Andy, wants to fill in for him. She's like, why can't I fill in for my brother? Why can't I do this? You know, I've learned how to, ride these bikes as well, and I feel like I could definitely at least help the family out by us not losing our place in the tournament altogether. Except the father is not about that in any way, shape, or form, which I will say is pretty annoying throughout the course of the film. Like, there is some heavy male misogyny over the course of the film. The dad does not believe in his daughter at all and is consistently belittling her and consistently just putting her down throughout the entirety of the movie. It was one of the most frustrating things upon revisiting this film. But of course, when the father goes away to end up trying to find a European rider to ride in their tournament, he's not there when they end up getting the letter saying that the tournament has been moved up a few weeks and now they need to have a rider that weekend. And so Andrea, who again also goes by the name Andy, decides to cut her hair off and decides to pretend she's her brother Andy or Andrew and be a part of this tournament. And similar to other iterations of this story, when she gets there, she ends up befriending one dude who has another girl that he likes, and these two end up building a bond as two boys, and eventually by the time we get to the end of the movie, there's a romance that built between the two of them because he found out that she's actually a girl and that they had a really good bond, and so now that he knows she's a girl, they decide to have a romance. It's a classic tale. We've seen it done so many times before. There's nothing about this film that's wholly original, but It's something about the time, the cheese, and the charm of this film that kept me engaged while revisiting it. By no means is this a great film, and by no means is this a movie that is going to blow anybody's socks off, especially if you've seen something like She's the Man, which Dave is also going to mention. But, you know, going back and revisiting this, I won't lie, I had a good time. By the time the credits were rolling at the end of the film, I found myself having had a good time. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't anything that I was like, wow, that was way better than I expected it to be. It was pretty much what I remembered, with a huge sprinkling of cheese on it. There were so many moments, scenes, transitions, lines of dialogue, performances that I forgot that they were as bad as they actually were. But I do think that this film, for the most part, has a solid message about the idea that a girl can do what a guy can do, and the fact that, you know, women can compete in a lot of the same things that men can. Now, of course, there's a debate as far as what that is in the real world that I'm sure a lot of people will have opinions on. But in the case of something like this, the idea that a girl can have similar skill to guys in a certain craft, a certain skill, yeah, you know, I think that that's something we've seen in a lot of stuff, especially nowadays. And it was nice to see things like this back in 2001 when it wasn't as commonplace when it came to movies. Now that we've talked about the base premise and my general thoughts going back and revisiting it, I have more I want to say about this movie, what I didn't like about this film, and what I enjoyed about it. But before we do that, let's go ahead and throw it on over to my buddy Dave from Interpreting the Stars, and we'll get back to my thoughts in just a moment.
Hey Anthony and all his followers, it's me, Dave, from Interpreting the Stars, obviously. A little while ago, Anthony decided to reach out to me and ask for another collab, and of course, it's Anthony. I gotta say yes. But then again, it is Anthony, so he's gonna ask me to watch something weird. Motocrossed. As soon as I heard that, I was like, wait. Disney Channel original movie, way back when. Alright, let's get cracking. So Motocrossed is one of the many adaptations based off of the Shakespeare play Twelfth Night, and it's about a girl named Andrea Carson who loves to motocross despite the fact that her daddy finds her unsuited for the sport. Cause, you know, obviously she's a girl. Girls don't do sports. But when her twin brother Andrew breaks his leg before a big race, their daddy-o is forced to go to Europe to find a replacement rider. In the meantime though, Andrea secretly races in Andrew's place with her mommy's help. So before I saw this movie, I knew basically one thing, and that it was based off of that Shakespeare's play, Twelfth Night. And we have seen other modern adaptations of the same play, most notably, of course, with the Amanda Bynes movie, She's the Man. Now, usually when I compare movies that come out of Paramount or DreamWorks, they almost never have a leg to stand on against Disney, but in this case they do. She's the Man's like 10 billion times better than Motocross. Now look, I'm not a fan of sports movies. If I'm gonna watch any, typically they're movies that came out in theater because they're bigger budget, they have a lot more time to prep and to make a film feel cinematic and dramatic and emotional in all the right ways. Movies that are like this, where they're much lower budgeted and they're on like Disney Channel as a Disney Channel original film, they just don't match up to any kind of caliber any theatrical sports film does. I'm not a huge fan of sports in general, so the only way that you can really get me into the mindset of watching these movies is to have the benefit of the doubt and actually have it be this big thing. Motocross in general is not a sport that I care about. I can tell while watching the movie that whoever it was riding the bikes did a pretty good job talent-wise, but otherwise I didn't really care about the story regarding the bikes themselves. I will say though, the casting in this movie was probably actually better than She's the Man, because in She's the Man, you can't ever not see Amanda Bynes. You can't ever see somebody that actually looks like a boy. You do in Motocross. She actually looks like her brother. They actually look like twins. I actually had to look it up to see if they were actually related, and it doesn't appear so, but the entire family, from mom to sister to the two brothers, they all looked like they legitimately were related to one another. So that's cool. That really helps sell the idea of what they're trying to do in this story. But it is legitimately the same story as in She's the Man. And as far as story goes, and as far as humor goes, and as far as narrative structure goes in general. I cared much more for She's the Man, which seemed to focus a little bit more on characters than the sport that they were playing in that, which was, what? Was it lacrosse? Soccer? Something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember the sport that they were playing in that movie, but I do remember the characters and kind of the humor that was related in that film. This one felt very much like a Disney Channel original film, which it is. The first thing that shouts out to me when I watch this movie is, one, that it's full screen, at least on Disney+, that it's interlaced, and badly interlaced at that. Some of the acting performances are moderately fine at best, kind of cringy at other times, and the music choices going on in the background is, I don't know, pretty typical for what you would find with the Disney Channel around this time, which is like rock music that they play during sports sequences, and that's about it. There's very few Disney Channel original films that I've seen in my life that felt worth it to watch and to watch again later on in life. Like, maybe I'd watch a movie and be like, oh, that was kind of cool, I don't really care to ever see it again, but that was fine. Almost nothing that the Disney Channel has ever done has left me with nostalgia, other than maybe High School Musical. I do love that series. There was another movie with Shia LaBeouf, I can't think of the name right off the bat for that movie. I think he played an autistic kid or something to the degree, and that movie was pretty good. But other than that, most of the movies that I've seen in general just kind of feel like something that you could shut your brain off to and watch live when it airs. Nothing that you want to go back and watch again, and I would say the same for Motocross. I'm 34, turning 35 in less than a month at this point, a couple weeks, and it's just not for me. I'm not in the target audience. I didn't really care about it. I didn't really care about the characters. I was bored a majority of the time and kind of distracted because I don't care about Motocross. I didn't care about the characters here. I can appreciate some of the stunt work gone into the bike riding. I can appreciate the casting done on making this family actually look related. But past that, I literally don't care about this movie at all. But it was funny watching the dad be like, ugh! He was a little bit over the top in this movie. I gave Motocrossed a C-letter grade, final overall score of 61%. 61 out of 100 possible stars. You can see that the highest part of the score is found in the technical aspect of the score, and the unbiased score of 66%, which doesn't say that the movie is well done by any means, but it is fair, I guess. Basically, they made the movie that they intended to make, which deserves praise all on its own. My bias score is lower at 56% because, look, did I have an overwhelming urge to turn the thing off? Not really, but I was distracted throughout the film. I won't say that the movie was bad all around, but I'm not gonna be watching this again. But yeah, Anthony, thanks for inviting me over to your channel again. I definitely appreciate it. I always jump at the chance to join you in a discussion, and hey, at least it's not what's his face, Seaweed Face Man, Swamp Man, Swamp Thing. At least it's not Swamp Thing. But Anthony, until next time, peace out.
A big thanks to Dave from Interpreting the Stars for taking the time out of his life to watch this movie and join me here in this video. As usual, guys, you can find the link to any of my guests down below in the description box, so go give them some love, let them know I sent you. And Dave, thank you so much for always being willing to just watch whatever I send your way. It's always a pleasure to hear your thoughts on something, even if we disagree on things. And I'm glad for the most part you didn't hate this movie, that there was elements about it that you enjoyed, but that you also didn't enjoy. I can totally understand where you were coming from with both the positives and the negatives. And yeah, I think it's kind of difficult to talk about this film in the modern world without talking about probably the one that did it the best, being She's the Man. I think that film captures it really well, and every element that works about that film is present in this film, but done just a little bit not as good, or lesser, I guess is the way to put it. Yeah, this is a movie, like I said before, that is not necessarily wholly original. It's a film that knows what it is. It's cheesy, it's of its time, it's made for TV. The performances are not fantastic, but there is a cute charm to this film. Going back and revisiting it, I think an element for me, without a doubt, is nostalgia. I can recognize, as somebody who does talk about film here on YouTube and tries to, you know, I don't want to call myself a film critic, but tries to get into the world of film criticism, I can totally recognize that this movie is not going to work for everybody. I would say most people who have no nostalgic attachment to this, or even an attachment to TV movies of this era, will watch this movie and probably not be all that into it. But I do think there are some powerful equality messages throughout the course of the film that still ring true to this day. I do think there are moments of solid performance and moments where you're really just kind of buying into this very goofy premise and the cheesy goofiness that comes from the Disney Channel budget and feel and vibe. There was something so unique to the Disney Channel movies of this era. You know, unique could be good or bad, I guess, depending on who you are, but revisiting it, there's just a cheesy charm, and it takes me personally back to being a kid, and there's a simplicity to a film like this versus, you know, anything else that's given a far bigger budget. I think something a lot of people are curious about, probably if you've never seen this movie, is at least the motocross stuff pretty cool, and I would say it's pretty solid. It's nothing crazy, kind of like what Dave said before. I think some of the best sports films usually have a bigger budget to really capture a lot of these sports moments in a very cinematic way. And while there's some solid writing here, there's definitely some good stunt work when it comes to the motocross element of the film. A lot of it is shot in a very, you know, straightforward, competent way. It's nothing that's absolutely amazing. It doesn't really have much of a cinematic edge to it. There's even moments in the middle of some of the races where it feels like the camera quality changes because they probably were using different cameras to try to capture certain angles, and it doesn't always flow as a cinematic experience when it comes to those moments. So without a doubt, I think that's something that's worth mentioning, even though I do think that this film still has a charm because of its time frame and the fact that it was made for Disney Channel on TV, which just gave it a whole different vibe. So I feel like talking about this movie and even criticizing it, you kind of have to take into account that you know this is going to be a cheesy film. You got to know that there was almost an attempt to keep it lighthearted and cheesy with some of the light dialogue, and especially with our main character Andrea pretending to be her brother. You have her walking around the whole time putting on a fake dude bro voice, and yeah man, we're gonna go over here and do that and do this, and yeah, my bike is totally sick, man. All that kind of stuff that's just so of its time in terms of some of the lingo. You have also the outfits in this are just so dated. There's so many elements, and just as far as how this movie looks and how the characters are acting and how they're dressed and how their hair is styled, that is so of the time. So when you have this character also putting on a voice that's supposed to be like the dude bro of the time, it's definitely cheesy. You know, you just kind of have to take it for what it is, and it's hard to fully critique in a way of taking itself seriously because it doesn't take itself too seriously. So while I don't think this is an amazing movie, I also don't think it's a terrible movie, nor do I really even think it's all that bad of a movie. Beyond whether or not the movie is good or bad, something that I definitely was just so bothered by, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, was the dad in this movie, who just consistently, even though the performance is fine, you know, there's nothing about it that's amazing or terrible in any way, shape, or form, the dad is just so overly written to be the disapproving father, specifically at his daughter. If his sons have anything to say pretty much else throughout the course of the film, you know, most of the time he's kind of in support of them, unless they're in support of her. There are so many times that she'll just say something in support of their family, of just trying to be helpful, and his lack of faith in his daughter is absolutely mind-boggling. The entire time he's just shutting her down. The entire time he's just taking a diarrhea dump all over her head from beginning to end. There's not a single moment in this film until the very end where he sees his daughter get pushed by the European rider that he ends up bringing into the race, named Renee, I believe. Yeah, you don't really even see the dad protect her in that moment, but it's not until that moment that he ends up actually stepping in for his daughter and realizes that, you know, she has potential to win the race. But even though this guy that he brought from Europe to come live in their house, who is just rude to his kids, ends up pushing his daughter directly in front of him, he really doesn't do anything. He just kind of says, "Hey, you're fired. You're a bad guy." I'm thinking, dude, the real situation, you know, some European dude you bring over to be your, you know, motocross rider ends up pushing your daughter like right in front of you, your 15, 16-year-old teenage daughter. I feel like a lot of dads are throwing hands. I don't know. If you've seen this movie before and you saw that scene, I have to know from a father perspective, what are you doing? Are you slapping the shit out of this guy? Because I have to imagine many fathers are going to be doing that. But yeah, that was just something that bothered me about the movie. I just felt like I had to mention it. It was just so specifically written for him to be such a disapproving father that at a certain point, it just made me roll my eyes. But yeah, you know, this is a cheesy good time. This isn't a movie that's going to work for everybody. I can say it's a cheesy good time because I personally have a nostalgic attachment for it. It's something that I remember growing up watching. It was on TV all the time. It was something I can remember watching with my sister when we were kids. And there's always going to be something about it that just kind of takes me back to that time. Revisiting it, it's cheesy, it's not great in a lot of ways. There's so many moments of dialogue and so many moments of performance that do not work, that are just absolutely dated. There's so much about this film that is so of 2001, like it's just so specific to the time when it comes to the look, the feel, the vibe, everything about this film. But I did find it charming. I don't find it necessarily great. I don't necessarily even know if I would say it's good. But for me, it was a charming, cheesy, good revisit as a nostalgic watch. Is it going to work for everybody? No, but I would be curious to hear what a lot of people has to say about this. If you've never heard about Motocross and you're a Disney fan and you're like, wow, that's just a Disney film I've never heard of, throw it on. I'd love to hear people's thoughts. You know, if you end up watching it down the line, come back to this video, drop a comment down below, let me know what you think of it. And for anybody who has seen this film and has also seen something like She's the Man, which of the two do you prefer? I gotta imagine somebody prefers Motocross over She's the Man. I'd be surprised, but you know, in this world, I'm also not too surprised by something like that. Before we wrap it up, again, I just want to say a big thanks to all of you guys for watching. Again, hit that like button if you guys enjoyed this video. It really helps the channel out. Comment your thoughts down below and go give some love to my guest, Dave, of Interpreting the Stars. The link to his channel is down below in the description box. Go give him some love, let him know I sent you, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next video. Again, a big thanks to you guys for your support and sitting here watching me ramble about a 2001 Disney Channel original movie called Motocross. It was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to going back and revisiting more Disney Channel original movies from my childhood that I've yet to cover here on the channel. And I'll also say really quickly that if you are interested in seeing more, I do have a playlist here on my channel called Disney, where I've covered, you know, tons of the big theatrical releases, some of the straight-to-video ones, but also plenty of Disney Channel original movies, where I often have one of my YouTube peers join me in that revisit or first-time watch for them. And a lot of them they have not been a fan of. There's definitely some funny videos here on the channel around Disney Channel original movies, and I'm looking forward to getting back into covering some of these, as it's been quite some time since I covered some Disney Channel original movies. So again, a big thanks to you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.